Hi, friends. Welcome back to Rapture and Chill. I'm Brooke. Thank you so much for being here. It's so wild to me that you guys keep coming back. By the way, someone asked if this is a monkey or something, and no, this is Douglas, and he's a Sasquatch. I put his hair up so you could see his cute little face, and now he's a sassy squatch because cryptids are fun. Anyway, so what's going on with all these missing and or dead scientists? Y'all been following this? I'm going to be really sad if the ones who are missing aren't just chilling in another dimension somewhere trying to figure out the best way to pull up and tell us they figure out how the universe works. The whole situation is so weird. Maybe we'll find an old prophecy somewhere about scientists disappearing. Not that this would be the first time a group of scientists went missing. That's a topic for another episode, though. This week, we're going to the Vatican. First of all, shout out to my friend Eva, because I have a pretty long list of random topics that I want to research for each episode. But then when I was trying to figure out what to do for this one, I was just staring at the list thinking everything was lame. And then out of absolutely nowhere, Eva texts me and is like, hey, have you ever heard of the prophecy of the popes? I didn't even ask her for ideas, and I certainly don't believe that was a coincidence because coincidences aren't real. So down the rabbit hole I went. I can't believe I'd never heard of this before because it's apparently pretty widely known, and obviously there's no way to prove any of this. It's mostly just fun to speculate, but you can't totally disprove it either, and that makes it even more fun. So this is episode 3, A Papal Paradox, Prophecy of the Popes. All right, let's get into it. Allegedly, in the year 1139 CE, or AD, if you're elderly like me, an Irish saint, Saint Malachy, allegedly predicted every single pope from 1143 until the end of the world. The prophecy of the popes is a list of 112 short, cryptic Latin phrases or mottos. But don't confuse these mottos with the actual episcopal mottos chosen by each pope. This ain't that. But it's not like St. Malachy just wrote down all their names on a list. I mean, this may as well be a bunch of riddles, and getting some of the pieces to fit the puzzle definitely requires a little stretching, but just humor me, okay? So here's the immediate issue with how this list was even discovered. In the year 1595, the Catholic Church was trying to rally after the Protestant Reformation because by that time they'd already lost a ton of people to Lutheranism, Anabaptism, Anglicanism, and Calvinism. Things were just a wee bit tense. St. Bernard of Clairvaux originally wrote St. Malachy's biography shortly after his death in 1148 because they were close friends. But several centuries later, a historian named Laurentius Surius republished it. I need to give you a quick background on him because it says a lot about his credibility, in my opinion. Surius was a German Carthusian monk. I'm sure, like me, you're wondering what that even means. The German Carthusian order is one of Catholicism's strictest and most secretive monastic groups. It was founded in 11th century France, but actually flourished in Germany throughout the Middle Ages. These monks spent much of their time in silent solitude, so they would often dedicate their lives to writing, translating, and preserving historical religious texts. Surius is best known for compiling a collection of stories of saintly lives, and he included St. Bernard's biography of St. Malachy in that work, which was published in the 1570s. But the prophetic list itself wasn't actually published until 1595 by a Benedictine monk named Arnold Wyan. Understandably, people are like, funny how you're just now discovering this 456 years after it was supposedly written, but he was not deterred. He said the manuscript had been hidden or forgotten in the Vatican archives all that time after St. Malachy originally gave the list to Pope Innocent II. Another small problem is that the phrases describing popes prior to 1590 are super accurate. Like it does all but spell out their names or hometowns. But after 1590 is where things start getting harder to fit because these phrases are more vague. So to someone who doesn't have a fun imagination, this may seem a little suspicious since the list didn't magically appear until 1595. But let's just keep going with it. We'll see. Skeptics of the prophecy's authenticity argue that none of the popes post 1590 match with phrases from the list. And maybe it's true that some of them are harder to match than others, but some of them actually do kind of make sense. So we're going to look at a few of them in more detail. For example, let's look at Pope Benedict XV. Giacomo della Chiesa was born in 1854 to a noble family in Italy. So, right out the gate, his bloodline is a plus. He knew he wanted to be a priest from a young age, but his dad said he shouldn't study for the priesthood until after he studied for civil law, which he did. He earned a law degree at the age of 21 in the 1870s. And over the years that followed, he became the protege of Cardinal Mariano Rampolla, who at the time was the Vatican Secretary of State. Giacomo was able to gain tons of real world experience dealing with the political side of the church, and he witnessed firsthand how the old world of empires was starting to crumble. He ended up being appointed as an archbishop in 1907, but in a strange twist, he just kind of got stuck in that position for like 7 years. Typically, one would have been made a cardinal within that time. So in the Vatican world, people were probably looking at him sideways like, what did you do? By the summer of 1914, the world was falling apart. Archduke Franz Ferdinand was killed in June, World War I began in July, and then Pope Pius X died in August, seemingly of a broken heart as he saw the war begin. Interestingly enough, though, he had made Giacomo a cardinal just 3 months before he died, which made him eligible for the papacy just in time. And many people believed that his knowledge of the law and experience under the Secretary of State made him the perfect choice to be chosen as the successor to reign as Pope during World War I. They needed a diplomat, someone who'd be able to negotiate with the warring nations of Europe in order to seek peace. In September of 1914, he finally got enough votes to reach the two-thirds majority, and he won by exactly 1 vote and became Pope Benedict XV. His motto in Saint Malachy's prophecy is Religio Depopulata, or religion depopulated. Given the fact that millions of Catholics from France, Italy, Austria, and Germany were killing each other at war, entire generations of the religious were being wiped out. And on top of that, the Soviet Union was formed in 1917, which officially adopted state atheism and led to thousands of churches being closed. So since millions of Christians were being forbidden from even practicing their faith, entire regions became depopulated of God. Add in the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic, which led to roughly 50 million people dying worldwide, and I imagine Pope Benedict XV was probably at his wit's end. He became known as a prophet of peace during the war and made it a point to remain very neutral while simultaneously pushing peace proposals, advocating for children, and providing aid to help families locate missing loved ones. In January of 1922, he went down to the Vatican garden to pray and waited in the rain for a cardinal who was running just a little late. As a result of this, though, he caught a severe cold, which turned into pneumonia. And after surviving World War I and the Spanish flu pandemic, he died from a lung infection. His last recorded words were, quote, "We offer our life for the peace of the world," end quote. Brutal. After his death, the Vatican realized that he'd spent nearly every cent of the church's money on humanitarian aid for war orphans, prisoners of war, and starving families in Europe and Russia, or the Soviet Union, depending on the year. They didn't even have enough money for his funeral. They had to borrow money from banks. And I agree with the skeptics that religion depopulated is pretty vague, but I can definitely still see how someone could connect the dots from St. Malachy's prophecy to Pope Benedict XV. The next line from St. Malachi is Fides Intrepida, or intrepid faith. If Benedict XV was the diplomat, his successor would need to be fearless because the war had left behind a black hole of despair that allowed Hitler, Mussolini, and Stalin to rise to power. And I don't think we have to do a deep dive on those guys. We know what they did: fascism, Nazism, and communism. Ambrogio Ratti was born in 1857 to a middle-class family in Italy. He was a librarian, a scholar, and apparently a world-class mountain climber. He was sent by Pope Benedict XV to Poland in 1918 to help get the church organized after World War I, since Poland had been liberated. The Polish were far from done defending themselves, though. In 1920, the Soviets marched on Warsaw, and every foreign diplomat fled the city. All of them except for the homie Ambrogio. He refused to leave despite the likelihood that he would be killed, and the Polish army held it down. They pulled out a win, and Ambrogio's bravery made him an absolute legend. He was made a cardinal by Benedict XV just 7 months before the Pope's death. In the 1922 conclave, the cardinals wanted to elect a warrior this time, someone who wouldn't back down from Mussolini. The Catholic Church was tired, so they chose the librarian of Warsaw, and he became Pope Pius XI in 1922. It sounds to me like intrepid faith, man. I don't know. He was scaling icy mountainsides long before he joined the priesthood, and I feel like that probably required a good amount of faith, if not in God, then at least in his own abilities. His first intrepid act as Pope was actually just walking outside. For over half a century, popes had stayed inside the Vatican, refusing to step out on the balcony of St. Peter's because they didn't recognize the Italian government. But Pius XI walked right out onto that outer balcony and blessed the crowds. He decided it was more impactful to confront fascism with faith than to hide away within the confines of the Vatican. Slay Papa. This was a huge moment for the papacy and for Catholics as a whole. The librarian who was sent into a literal war zone was now the head of the church, and he seemed up to the task. He signed a treaty with Mussolini in 1929 that created Vatican City as a sovereign state, and he encouraged Catholics to take their mission to the streets. He wanted them to present a fearless faith in the face of Christian persecution, and he became increasingly more disgusted by Mussolini and Hitler over the course of his 17-year reign as Pope, and it's believed that he was going to excommunicate them both in a speech scheduled for February 10th, 1939, but he died just hours before he was supposed to give that speech. The world was now on the brink of World War II, and once again, the cardinals knew they would need to look to a different style of leader. Eugenio Pacelli was born March 2nd, 1876, to a fiercely loyal Roman Catholic family. His grandfather was actually the founder of the Vatican's newspaper, and his dad was the dean of the Vatican lawyers. He was raised with such a deep appreciation for the church that while other kids played soldiers, he held pretend masses in his bedroom. He was reportedly a very serious young man, but he had chronic health problems for most of his life. He was often described as looking angelic due to his pale, fragile state, so it may be no surprise that the next line in Saint Malachy's prophecy is Pastor Angelicus, or angelic shepherd. Because of his poor health, he was actually allowed to study for the priesthood at home during the day instead of having to live in the cold, damp dorms at the seminary. He was ordained on Easter Sunday in 1899, which is very symbolic for believers of the prophecy. During the First World War, he was sent to Germany to deliver a peace plan from Pope Benedict XV to the German Emperor Kaiser Wilhelm II. The Kaiser later wrote in a memoir that Eugenio seemed to radiate a spiritual authority that came from a higher kingdom and described him as a man of distinguished aristocratic appearance with large, dark, intelligent eyes. Eugenio warned Wilhelm that if Germany didn't seek a peaceful resolution, the nation of Germany would be swallowed by communism, and that's exactly what happened 1 year after the priest's advice was ignored. He also stood up to a group of armed robbers who broke into the papal embassy in Munich to steal his car and documents. Everyone else was freaking out, but Eugenio put on his bishop's robes and basically just squared up. One of the guys put a pistol to his chest, and Eugenio said, "It is never wise to kill a diplomat of the church." And they just left, dude. Like, what? And then one other quick little side story. The day that he was made a bishop was May 13th, 1917. And there was another very important event on that day. In Fatima, Portugal, 3 young shepherd kids claimed to have seen the Virgin Mary appear to them over a tree. And that was just the first of 6 times that she showed up before finally, on October 13th, 1917, the main event was witnessed by 70,000 people. This was the miracle of the sun. The crowd claimed to have seen the sun appear to spin, change colors, and plunge toward the earth. The 3 kids, however, said that they saw a series of different visions, including the Holy Family and Saint Joseph. Maybe it's a coincidence that Eugenio was being made a bishop at the same time the Virgin Mary was appearing to the children for the first time, but he thought it was relevant and that his destiny was somehow tied to that event. And I say again, coincidences aren't real, but synchronicities are. After Pius XI died in 1939, the cardinals knew they needed to elect Eugenio as his successor. He was elected on his 63rd birthday and became Pope Pius XII, seemingly fulfilling the angelic shepherd prophecy. During the Holocaust, he turned the Vatican, local monasteries, and convents across Rome into secret refugee camps. Historians estimate that he helped save over 500,000 Jews and political refugees by hiding them in all of these different places. In October of 1950, he claimed to have witnessed the miracle of the sun himself 4 different times, which led him to formally define the dogma of the Assumption of Mary, meaning he officially declared that she was taken to heaven after her death. During the Cold War, he issued a decree that automatically excommunicated any Catholic who joined or supported the Communist Party. Pious, obviously, but angels don't have to be soft, okay? He passed away in October of 1958, and many people feel like his death was the end of an era for the Catholic Church. I could honestly go on and on about how each pope fits the prophecy in one way or another, but I wanted to just go into detail about a few where the prophecy wasn't a direct hit for their name or birthplace, but people were able to make it fit based on personality and character traits. There are several that were pretty direct hits, though. Angelo Roncalli was the Archbishop of Venice, and he was famous for using gondolas to sail up and down the canals to shepherd his flock. Because of its location, Venice has lots of ports, so it's long been a hot spot for mariners and sailors. Angelo became Pope John the 23rd, and his prophetic motto was Pastor et Nata, or shepherd and sailor. Direct hit, sunk your battleship. His successor, Paul VI, had 3 fleurs-de-lis on his shield, and he didn't design that. He used his family's coat of arms. Back in the 16th century, the lily was universally recognized in Latin armory as the flower of flowers. Want to guess what his prophetic motto was? Flos florum, or flower flowers. His successor, John Paul I, was also the Archbishop of Venice at one point before he was elected Pope. Unfortunately, his papacy only lasted 33 days because he had a heart attack. But listen, his prophetic motto was De Medietate Lunae, or of the half moon. He was elected when the moon was in the last quarter, when it's a half moon, and he died a month later during the following half moon. And he was born in the Diocese of Belluno, which literally translates to beautiful moon. Then we come to John Paul II. You guys, the motto was De Labore Solis, which translates to of the solar eclipse. Why was he elected on the day of a partial solar eclipse? Like, honestly, I was so prepared to just believe that this was all a silly forgery when I first started researching, but daggum, how many coincidences equal a prophecy? I mean, wow. Skipping ahead to this decade now, the final motto on the list would seemingly belong to Pope Francis. There were 112 entries on the list, and 111 of them were very short mottos. The last one, though, was a doozy. It said, quote, "In the final persecution of the Holy Roman Church, there will sit Peter the Roman, who will pasture his sheep in many tribulations. And when these things are finished, the city of 7 hills will be destroyed, and the dreadful judge will judge his people." The end, end quote. So Peter the Roman would lead the church through many tribulations before the eventual fall of Rome and Judgment Day. But Pope Francis died in 2025. So what about Pope Leo XIV? Francis would have been number 112. Does that mean Peter the Roman represents multiple popes in the end days? Does it mean we're in a transition period between the end of the prophecy and the beginning of the new world? Maybe. Did Saint Malachy even write it? Or was this whole document a forgery to begin with? Was it all just a ruse to breathe life back into the Catholic Church after the Protestant Reformation? I don't know. I've said it before, I'm just a girl with the internet. And just to be super clear, the Catholic Church has never sanctioned this prophecy. But man, it is interesting. Well, far be it from me to speak for the whole world, but the times, they are unprecedented. We've got the first ever American-born Pope in the Vatican now, which is pretty cool. Then we've also got the President of the United States calling the Chi-Town Pope weak on crime, which is just absurd. You guys, please understand this. The Pope is not a political figure. He's a religious leader. His only stance on crime should be don't do it, which is basically what he said about this war with Iran. Pastors, priests, preachers, popes, rabbis, imams, monks, gurus, shamans, whatever. These are not politicians. They're your spiritual leaders. You should be looking to them for guidance morally and spiritually. Yes, absolutely. But their stance on crime is irrelevant. If your pastor's preaching about crime and politics from the pulpit, I'm telling you right now, that is weird. And it's precisely why so many people are turning away from organized religion. I don't know why anyone would even be surprised to hear that. But take it from me, God is not the reason that church got weird. People are. So ignore the weirdos and do it your own way. While I was getting ready to record today, one of my newest friends texted me and said that she just heard something really impactful. Quote, "You may be the only Bible that some people read. What kind of Bible are you?" End quote. It just felt right to add that in here because regardless of whether your belief in God is Christian or something else, you're a representative of God's love. So if someone reads you, what will they find? Are you harboring hate, judgment, and condemnation? Or are you providing a safe, loving, and welcoming environment for others spiritually? You know that saying, you catch more flies with honey than vinegar? It's true. I don't know about you, but I am much more likely to follow guidance from someone who's leading with love instead of anger. And it feels better too. I'm a big fan of the law of attraction. And if you want good things to come to you, you have to put good energy out into the world. Blessed are the peacemakers. The bad news is, yeah, things aren't great right now. But there is good news too. And the good news is the pendulum eventually has to swing the other way. And we're almost there. I mean, yeah, we have to get through some gnarly stuff, but an awakening is happening. We all feel the shift. So focus on getting to the other side of it. Be kind, be open. Don't let the world break your spirit and don't let it make you hateful. There's light at the end of the tunnel, but y'all, we have got to figure out a way to be nice to each other. Please, dude. We're learning, we're loving, we listen and we don't judge. I mean it. Let go of it. We'll be all right. Next time I'm talking about, I don't know, something druids maybe? I haven't decided. Also, don't forget to follow the podcast on Instagram. There's a post for episode 3 with some of the images I use. So definitely check that out if you're a listener instead of a watcher. And that's it for our Papal Paradox, friends. Thank you so much for joining me. And remember, until next time, it is super important to just rapture and chill. Bye.